All right. Hello, everyone. Maher Al-Kendi, and today's topic will be about web accessibility. And really, when I say, even though we're saying web, we are including all software, so even mobile is included here. A lot of things will apply. All right, so let's get started. So here are the topics that we'll be talking about. So just explaining what we mean by accessibility on the web. Next, we will talk about why accessibility matters, why we should care about it. And then we're gonna just discuss a little bit about what things we can work on to make our websites or web applications more accessible. We're not gonna cover it all. Accessibility is a very large topic, but we're just gonna have some kind of a starting point. And then we'll do kind of a demo. I would like to show you guys, it'll be a little bit interactive, so we'll wait for that. And then I'll share some resources so that you can go forward and explore this huge world of accessibility. All right. So what do we mean by accessibility? So this definition comes from MDN. Accessibility is the practice of making your website usable by as many people as possible. So I like it because it's very straightforward, to the point, and very clear. So basically, you want to make sure that your application or your website can be used by as many people as possible, as many groups as possible. So what does that mean? That means people with disabilities. That means people with slow internet. That means people who don't have maybe a laptop, things like that. That's what we're trying to focus on here. So why it doesn't matter? Why should we care? Here are a couple of stats that we had. So let's look at the first one. So in 2015, there was around 250 million people with visual impairment around the world. That's a significant number of people that cannot experience the web the same way we experience it. So it's important for us to make sure that as we're building, we're keeping that in mind to make sure that they have a very good experience when going through a website or a web app. And then look at the second stat. You can see that internet penetration right now in the Middle East, 62%. And a large number of the people, even with internet in the Middle East and around the world, have very slow connections. This is another group of people that we need to make sure that we're paying attention to. And especially on the web, it's very important just because of how the web works. And people need to be able to access different pages very quickly. So we need to make sure that our page is responsive and very fast. Otherwise, they can't really use different services that the web provides. So here's, so that's the main idea here, is we're just trying to hit all the different groups that are around the world that cannot experience the web in the same way that we experience it, which is with a mouse and clicking on the screen. Now, if for some reason you don't care about that, here's a very good reason to also care. From 2019, stats from the United States, from 2019 to 2020, lawsuits related to digital accessibility have increased by 20%. So a significant increase from that, and you can bet that that even increased more because of COVID now, right? Because of more people are online now because of COVID-19. So this is a huge risk that companies are having when they're releasing websites to the public that are not accessible. And you might think that who are these people that are suing websites and suing developers and companies, and you might think that that's not important, but if you think about it, a lot of people, and especially these days, in order to access services, you have to go online. And I mentioned COVID. That's a great example right there. In order to get medicine, you might need to go online. In order to get food, you might need to go online. So a lot of things are transitioning to being online. And if it's not accessible, people can't get access to basic human rights. That's if your website is not accessible. So pretty important. And in a lot of countries, by law, your website needs to be accessible. All right. So hopefully now you care about that, and we can get right into talking about how we can make sure our website is accessible. So for this next one, I'm just asked ask you guys to participate a little bit. I'm going to show you guys a graph, and I just want to ask you guys if you see anything wrong with it. All right, so this is simple graph, bar chart. Do we see, can I get some participation first of all? And do we see any problems here? What are the problems here? Is this accessible?
It's not.
What's missing here? Why
the x-axis and y-axis label.
Very good point.
You also have the problem of using green and red, which if you're colorblind, I don't think you can see the difference between them.
That is another very good point. That's true. Many people are colorblind, and in many cases, not all cases, but in many cases, red and green, they can't really tell the difference between them. That's a very good point. Anything else? So we mentioned the axis. We mentioned the color. Any other things we can?
I think the legend also, like there is no explanation for what this graph is for.
100%. There's another one. That's very good. Yeah.
The font size is super small.
Another good point. It's really, really small. You can't even read what is going on there. Obviously, it's one letter, but if it was more, it would be much more difficult to read it. Yeah. Anything else? All right, I think we covered a lot of points here. Happy everybody participated and gave a lot of really good points. I didn't give you guys, like, the only thing that I guess we missed is just being able to visually kind of indicate which bar goes to another one, just not from color, because the color is the only thing that guides us to which bar chart leads to which item in the legend. That's the only thing I guess we didn't mention, but everything you mentioned is pretty important, and we need to make sure that we are accounting for that when it comes to when we design these type of charts and even forms on our pages. I do want to go to that item to that point about the coloring. That is for sure a very important point, because if you actually use tools to that simulates the color brand experience, you will notice that both colors are very close to each other, especially red and green. All right, so here I just gave one example of fixing it, but every example that you've mentioned for sure applies here. All right. So, so that's one thing we can do is this is something when you're designing a form, when you're designing a graph, these are things that you need to make sure that you're making, that you're accounting for. This is something maybe designers are thinking about, but developers should also. Next, let's go to something developers mainly focused on developers, which is the usage of semantic HTML. So what do we mean by semantic HTML? Semantic HTML is the use of HTML markup to reinforce key thing, semantics or meaning, and not the presentational look. So mainly when we're writing HTML, we need to be thinking about what is the meaning of the information that we're putting between these two tags, right? The presentation or look is secondary relative to the meaning of the tag. And so that's what we mean here by semantic HTML. Make sure that when someone reads your HTML code, they know the structure, they know what's going on, they know the information hierarchy, right? That's also accessibility for developers. All right, so actually we can get a little deeper with semantic HTML through a demo. So with this demo, what I wanted to do is kind of put ourselves in the shoes of one of the demographics that that generally we don't think about when we're developing on the web, which is people with visual impairment. So we're going to simulate that type of environment by using a screen reader. So I'll have a screen reader in the background, and I'm going to show some examples of the experience that people go through when using a screen reader and if a website is not designed well. So let's move on to here. So here's some examples. So let's start with a simple example. Let me zoom in so that everybody can see. So pretty simple HTML file, not too much styling. You have a header, you have some paragraphs, and then a list. I can show you the code right here. So it should be very familiar to everybody. H1, my heading, and then I showed the 2 paragraphs. We have the list, and then heading 2. We have the buttons, and then that final P tag there, paragraph tag at the bottom. Okay, so hopefully this is familiar to everybody. Let me now turn on the screen reader. So you might hear some sound. Let me know if it's too loud. So
Chromevox spoken feedback is ready.
I hope everybody heard that. In that case, well, you guys heard that, right?
Yeah, we did.
Okay, great. All right, so now let's try it out right now. So what I'm going to do is just show how it works. This is actually not a bad example of using a screen reader. So I'm going to show you a good example, and then we'll go to the next. All right.
Window accessibility example 1 tab.
So what did we just hear? We heard them mentioning the name, the title. So by the way, this is why it's important to have a title tag in your HTML, right? Because
Window accessibility example 1 tab.
There you go. It will tell us which tab we're in, right? And then, all right, let's start actually going through the page.
My heading 1.
See what we just heard? We heard the text, and then also told us what heading it was. It says heading 1. Why is that important? That's important because it tells us the hierarchy of information, right? So when does it matter if it's heading 1? Well, as you keep going, let's say we come to this heading.
My subheading heading 2.
See, it says heading 2. So that tells us, all right, that means this is under heading 1 when it comes to hierarchical information, right? So this is important when you cannot see it, and you cannot see that this has a smaller font. You need to know this type of information to understand what the document is saying. All right, I'll just show a little bit more so you can see how it, for example, reads a list. Let's check that out.
Ordered list with 3 items. 1. Here is list item.
See, clearly told us that it's an ordered list. So we know it goes from 1 to however long. And it actually mentions, okay, it actually says however long. It says three items. And yeah, just reads out the text. So let's
3. You to read list item.
There you go. So that's what it does. And then yeah, with paragraph 10.
This is the second subsection of my content. I think is more interesting than the last one.
All right, there you go. So that's what a screen reader does. So,
Window extensions tab.
So the next thing I want to do is I want to show a bad example. Okay, so let's look at this. All right, so I'm gonna zoom in. This is a similar page, almost not exactly same style, but it's pretty close. We have the same heading. You know, we have a list here. We have the subheading. Visually, you know, it conveys the same information. It's not like there's anything different here when it comes to, you're getting the same information here visually, right? So let's see how it works if we're using a screen reader and we can't see the screen.
Chromevox spoken feedback is ready.
All right, just turned it on, and let's come to the page. It's gonna first tell us about the tab.
Window accessibility example 2 tab.
All right, now let's start reading.
My heading.
Did we see the difference there? It just said my heading. It just read this text, right? So it doesn't tell us what the information is. How come? So if we come to the code, and this is the code for it, this is the second example, you'll notice that we have a div here. So we don't have an H1, we have a div, and then that's the text, my heading, and we're styling and we're making it bigger. So that doesn't actually give us the information that we need. That's not the job of HTML. HTML is supposed to explain what the information inside the tags is. And it affects not only someone that's coding, but also affects people that use screen readers. So as you can see, that's one issue.
Window accessibility example 2 tab.
Thank you for letting me know. And now let's read the rest of it. Let's see what other issues we can find.
My heading, this is the first section of my document. I'll add another paragraph here too. 1, here is 2, a list.
Okay, whoa. It just started reading, it didn't stop, it didn't let me decide what is going on. So let's check it out. Looks like we're using, okay, the breakpoints, and then it looks like our information is not inside any tags. That's a problem. Here we have a list. Sure, it looks like a list, but it's not inside any text. So that is a big problem, and it causes problems for screen readers. So let me show another example of another
Window accessibility example 2 tab.
So here we have an interesting thing here at the bottom. We have a paragraph, right? So
Whales are really awesome creatures. To find more out about whales, click here.
So this one seems fine. Do you think there's any problems here? Can anybody tell me, like, is there a problem? We just heard it. I can, yeah, go ahead.
Click here is actually a link. So I didn't mention that it's a link.
But okay, cool. Then maybe
My heading,
my
heading, file : / users / Maher Al-Kendi / desktop / accessibility example 2. Click here, link.
Oh God, all right. I apologize for that.
My second subheading, click here, link.
There you go. It just told me to click here and it says link. So actually, if I navigate there, it will tell me it's a link. So is there a problem?
Well, what is it linking to, though?
Yeah, you found it. Exactly. That's the issue, is that sometimes you're navigating from one point to another. So if I click
My
here,
second subheading,
all right, and I'm navigating.
click here, link.
It just told me click here, link. What does that mean, right? That means I don't know where it's taking me. But
Accessibility example 1, tab.
All right, so let's look at this example here. If I do.
Whales are really awesome creatures. Find out more about whales.
Okay, and then let's me click tab.
Find out more about whales, link.
There you go, right? See the difference there? It told me I navigated somehow. You never know how it is, right? You might navigate somehow to the link. It tells you click here, link. Okay, click here, and what happens, right? So in this case, it actually tells me, find out more about whales, link. So then I know, okay, I can click on this link and I'll learn more about whales, right? So that's a little subtle thing that's important for us to pay attention to when we're designing.
Window extensions tab.
All right, so I'm going to show one more example. Let's do an image. All right, I'm going to turn on the screen reader. Brace yourselves.
Chromevox spoken feedback is ready.
All right, it's ready. All right, so let's.
Window accessibility example 3 tab.
All right, so let's click on the. Just told us we're on this.
A cat high-fiving a human.
Oh, actually. Oh. Whoops. All right, so it actually reads what it is because we have an alt tag. So this is actually a very common thing for developers not to have an alt tag. So it knew what it is. So let me show an example without an alt tag. Give me a second. So I just saved without an alt tag.
Window.
And let me refresh. All right, so same image. I'm gonna turn on the thing now. And let's.
Chromevox spoken feedback is ready.
All right. So
Window accessibility example 3 tab. IMG_001 image.
Okay, so we see there the difference, right? So without an alt tag, it just reads the name of the image, right? If you
Window accessibility example 3 tab. IMG_001 image.
see what I did there? It just literally just read the name of the image. So actually this tells us two things, right? So one is we need alt tag. What's another thing you think we should probably do?
Meaningful names for the image file.
Exactly. So even see how important this is. This screen reader happens to be able to read image files. Some screen readers can't. But as you can see, even the name of the image matters when it comes to accessibility, because if you forget the alt tag, at least if you have a meaningful name, it can read the name of the image here. Right, so just something for us to pay attention to. There's much more when it comes to images. So yeah, but I wanted, because this is such a common thing to not have an alt tag, that I wanted to just highlight that. Now I'll just mention one more thing when it comes to images. If it's a decorative image, feel free to leave the alt tag empty. So, but have an alt tag, just have it as an empty string. Okay, so just something to mention because it's a very common thing. Now,
Window accessibility example 2 tab.
the final thing, I wanted to show a good example of how you structure your website. Not the best styling, but today's not about styling, right? It's about information hierarchy. So you'll see here how the information flows, right? So let's start from the top.
Main topic, heading 1.
There you go. Start from the main topic.
Navigation list with 3 items. Page 1, internal link list item.
Actually told us this is a navigation list with 3 items. So we know, have all the information. Now let's go to the bottom.
Article heading, heading 2.
So we know this is the article. We know this is the article heading, and it's called article heading as well. And if we keep going.
Aside, related, heading 2.
That's aside tag. So it tells us it's a side tag. So we know this is still part of the article because it's heading 2.
List with 2 items. Resource 1, internal link list item.
So it tells us that's a list right there. Let's keep going.
Footer list with 2 items. Social link 1, internal link list item.
So now we know, okay, that's a footer, that's a link. So what I'm trying to say is that this is how the experience should be. The information should convey like each section, what each section is. So if it's a header, it should say this is a header. If it's a navigation bar or something, it should mention that it's a navigation list. And then our main article. And then if there's anything aside, maybe related links, and then the footer. So I'm going to show you the markup right here. So you have your header, have your nav, right? This is what tells the screen reader it's a navigation list, because there's other lists it's not gonna and it's not gonna know, but this is what tells it it's a navigation list. It's very important information for your user. Then you have the main section. These are all semantic tags I can share with you guys if you're not familiar with the semantic tags. But yeah, a lot of these tags don't have any styling. They have default styling, but so they follow the browser's default styling. But they convey meaning to users, basically programmers, and to screen readers. Okay, and then we can go all the way to the footer. Yeah, so that's the key thing that I'm trying to convey when it comes to semantic HTML.
Window accept.
All right, that is all for the screen reader. Let me go next. So what I want to mention is that we're just scratching the surface when it comes to accessibility. There's many other areas to explore when it comes to accessibility. There's performance. We could talk about how to improve web performance. I actually had to talk about this. Mobile responsiveness. Not every user has access to a laptop. Sometimes you need to access something from your mobile application. Browser supports. You need to make sure that your website works on different browsers depending on what your users' needs. Translation. Is this website accessible for people that can't speak a certain language? Using clear language. This is a big topic. That's actually part of accessibility. So you need to make sure that your error messaging, for example, in a form should be human readable, should be for a human, not for a machine, So all these things are all related to accessibility. It's a very large topic. I do have some resources here that I can share links with on Slack. But if you search on Google, any of these names here, you'll be able to learn a lot about accessibility. I especially I think the most accessible one here is the bottom one, which is MDN, Mozilla Developer Network. That's a very accessible source for beginners. And then you can get deeper with each of the other sources here. All right, so that is all I wanted to showcase. Thank you. Do you guys have any questions?
Thank you very much for that. My first question, as I normally ask, is what was the inspiration for this topic?
I've just, so there's a couple of things. One is I did talk about performance previously. So I was thinking about, okay, that was an important thing to discuss. And then performance is related to accessibility. So that was like, okay, that's something maybe I can talk about. And the other part is I just noticed that accessibility is not a very big part of our considerations yet when it comes to development, except at the end. So maybe when we're doing our quality assurance and things like that. So I just wanted to highlight this for the team, especially when it comes to error messaging. We need to make sure error messaging are human readable, right? Not for computers, not for developers, right? Oh, well, developers are human, but I hope you know what I mean. So that's kind of the inspiration here. So as we do more projects for people around the world, we need to make sure that it's accessible so that other, we're going to be doing more projects with wider appeal. So these are things we need to be thinking about. So that's what I would say, like,
Yeah.
caused it.
Makes a lot of sense. Also, based on some of the examples you showed, it'll also just make you a better developer, right? So, it'll really kind of get your mind focused on meaningful names and tags and variable names, etc., which you should be doing anyway. So
Exactly. They were designed to be, something like HTML that we talked about was designed to be accessible. It's just about how we use it. So a good developer would use it the correct way, which is the semantic way. All right. Any more questions from the team?
Thank you for the super informative talk, Maher. Like honestly, the examples were kind of like eye-opening, kind of just step into the shoes of someone who's having who has a disability, like, and in this case we were going with a visual impairment, and how much dependence there is on just listening. So if someone is designing like you mentioned, like a medicine website, having the accessibility features and how it's developed is super important, because like you're trying to get medication, and with medicine and stuff, it can, if you get the wrong medication, and that's where the legal lawsuit stuff can happen, where you said this but I got this, and it's a development thing. So those were the notion of semantic HTML and following those principles, I think as a developer can it adds more purpose to development and more impact towards like the code you write. Like there's responsibility to it, creates a sense of responsibility. So yeah, I really enjoyed the talk. I was definitely, I really dig the examples. So thanks for that.
Glad you enjoyed it. I agree with you about, it's a big responsibility, especially as our products go out to wider and wider users. So we need to make sure it's accessible. Any other? Oh, it looks like Lean, you have a question. Raise your hand.
It's not a question, but more of like just expanding on some of the references you used at the end, or you cited with the Ally project. What I've briefly read about them before, and what they do great is that they have a checklist that you can go off of their website that goes off kind of like coding and visuals and just like basic design versus HTML differences, and I think that's like a valuable resource to use when you feel like you don't know how to make a website or anything accessible. I think the checklist they provide is super helpful and something we can look out for and kind of learn from. So just like thank you for mentioning that.
Thank you. Yeah, that's actually yeah, I appreciate you giving us more insight into what this provides, like the checklist. So yeah, that's something for our team to explore. It's a big topic. And by the way, the browser extension, your browser DevTools also provide you with a, if you use Lighthouse, it has an option for to check for accessibility. So that's even another resource. All right, Jishnu, I see you raised your hand.
Yeah, so I had a question. This came up in my mind. I was curious if when you showed the cat.
I think you're cut off, Jishnu. I can't hear what you're saying. Okay, we might have lost Jishnu. I hope you didn't lose me. Can you guys hear me? Did you lose me? Can anybody hear me? I really hope people can hear me because I can't hear Jishnu, and yeah.
So did you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Apologies. I think I got disconnected.
Oh, okay. I thought I got disconnected.
Somebody got disconnected.
Accessibility, right?
Can you please repeat your point, Jishnu?
Oh, I was just asking with regards to like data science and the example you mentioned about that you showed about the cat high-fiving. If let's say that tag wasn't there and the alt text wasn't there, is there some like data science solution that can be implemented, or is that something other companies are making products for, stuff like that?
Yes, there's actually many companies that's what they specialize in. So they know they follow these guidelines, and you can use them as a service basically to check your site for accessibility issues, and they just fix them automatically. There are some company services that do that. I can actually share resources. I think one of them is called Accessibly, but I need to check the exact name.
And these are data science driven solutions, or like ML, AI. I'm using all the buzzwords now.
To be honest, I don't know the insides of how they actually do that. So I can't really answer that question, to be honest. So, but I'll share with you the company, and you can do some digging.
Definitely, please do.
Any more questions from the team? All right. If there's no more questions, I'm gonna ask you guys to do a little thing for me. Go to.
And
Yeah.
I think Anfal was about to say something. I
Oh.
saw her.
Go ahead, Anfal.
Yeah, I do wanted to ask, like, do they normally like have a target audience for testing, or is it like a general people who would just like generally test like quality assurance? Like which one would you prefer, having a targeted audience, like people that do need accessibility for testing a specific thing, or like a general people?
So when you're testing, you mean who are you, like how are you doing your testing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a lot of these guidelines that we follow have thought about issues. I think a lot of the time when it comes to accessibility, the way they think about it is based on the senses. So if you have like a physical issue, and then if you have like a disability, and if you have a visual or something like that, and based on that, the guidelines have been written. And then when it comes to testing, they just follow the standards. And even like HTML5 was developed in a way to consider the disabilities, if that makes sense. So when it comes to testing, they're just following guidelines. Of course, every day maybe there's new guidelines coming out. So I'm not sure if I answered your question there. So when it comes
you did.
Okay.
So there's a guideline for testing in a way.
Yes, it's a very large guideline. It's like, testing for accessibility. I'll say it. It's like testing for security. There is no like 100% solution, but you can get very close.
That's clear.
Yeah.
That reminded me of. I mean, this is going to be an analog example, but like I saw this a few days ago. But in France, there's like a scene, like a photography spot, and there's like a hand railing, and on the hand railing, it's like for people who have a visual impairment, they can go to the hand railing, and there's braille on there to describe the view.
I remember I saw that. Yeah, that's amazing.
I was like, that's pretty, like, that's like thinking about everybody, thinking about the audience to the fullest extent. I thought that was really nice.
Yeah, accessibility. There you go.